Studio 8 is visiting the Gibsonton Fire Department. I should say probably the Volunteer Fire Department, because more than 95% of fire departments throughout the United States are volunteer. Now, 85% of these people receive no compensation whatsoever. Another 10% are paid in part, and would you believe it, less than 5% of fire departments are totally paid people. Now, to many of us, fire means that we run down to the corner pull box and pull the alarm. This is not true in rural areas. The first one to see the fire, if he's a member of the fire department, comes to the firehouse. If he's not a member, all the people in the area, in the fire district, know which number to call. And they come into the firehouse then and place the remember that most of these people are engaged in other occupations, maybe cooks or bakers, garage mechanics, housewives, whatever they might be. And those nearest, of course, are going to arrive first. On the first blast of the whistle, they'll immediately start for their car. In this case, we heard 3 whistles, which means, in the code of the Volunteer Fire Department, this is a house fire. 1 whistle would be the signal for the rescue unit. Number 2 for a grass fire, number 3 for a house fire, and number 4 for a general alarm. That is any fire they thought they could contain. The first person at the firehouse immediately pulls the unit outside the door, and very briefly, we'll see the rest of the fire department starting to arrive. The equipment's kept in readiness all the time. Tanks are full of gas. We're standing in front of the ambulance unit at the moment. They're getting ready to go. And on any house fire, the ambulance unit will roll just in case there is a chance of any personal damage. The firemen are arriving, parking their cars wherever they can find space. Waterproof hats, equipment, raincoats are hung in readiness. This first unit contains water in it because in a rural area there aren't any fire hydrants for the men to plug into. And though we haven't actually timed it, it's within minutes that this first unit will be out of the way. The Gibsonton Fire Department covers a broad area of about 16 to 18 square miles. Of course, they are contiguous on other volunteer fire department areas and also with the city of Tampa. The number 1 truck is ready, and as soon as a crew is aboard, that is a crew large enough to handle this particular house fire, they'll take off without waiting for the rest of the fire department. It also happens that sometimes the crew might arrive fast and get out towards the fire. The rest of the people will follow in their automobiles. The dispatcher is left at the station to direct people to the fire. As I said before, the ambulance unit will go in any house fire. Another unit now coming out of the garage. This is also a tank unit. Pump on the front of it. Carries the ladders in case of second-story work, some area that they can't use. And they're ready to head towards the fire. The volunteer fire department system is a complex one that perhaps we don't thoroughly understand. This morning we have the county coordinator, the former fire chief of the city of Tampa, Ed Levine, with us to give us probably a few footnotes that we might have missed. Ed, how does this system work? How can we be sure that all fires are covered?
Well, Tom, they have an alert system which is in full homes in Gibsonton area, and when the fire alarm comes in, these people pick it up. The first man to receive the alarm comes to the firehouse, opens the doors, and sounds the alarm on the siren. And then the other people begin coming in. And generally about 3 minutes, they have enough people here begin to move out to the fire.
Generally speaking, the area that they have to cover is within minutes.
Yes, they cover about 8 square miles, and they're almost in the center of it, so their covering area is about 3 miles each way in north and south, and about 2 miles east and west. So they cover a good area, and they, under the National Board ruling, they cover just about what they're supposed to.
You mentioned the National Board ruling. How does this affect the volunteer department?
Well, it has very little effect on the volunteer fire departments, but this is anywhere within the 3 mile area, they are able to cover just about as well as any paid department.
Mm-hmm. Well, we noticed the last unit out was a big tank truck. Is this standard equipment for all the volunteer units?
This is a unit that we have in 4 different departments in the county, and these are, of course, on our mutual aid agreement, will go anywhere in the county. Ordinarily, if it's a regular house fire, they don't use this too much.
There's so many things about the volunteer department that we haven't covered. We will cover later on in the week, and tomorrow we'll follow those fire engines to see just where they went. And in just a few moments, we'll be back in Studio 8. We're back in Gibsonton today at the Gibsonton Volunteer Fire Department. And as we explained earlier to you, not all of their calls are house fires or brush fires or general fires. A good many of them are for rescue calls. Now I think here we'll see a scene that we're all familiar with, especially those of us who have to work out in the yard and do things around the house. We're cutting grass, we're moving trash, we're doing things maybe somewhat in excess of our physical capabilities. Working in the yard is hard work, harder than many of us realize. This gentleman out cleaning trash out of his yard was a victim of a heart attack. And of course, we want to caution you that we staged this one. His neighbor, working in the backyard, ran across the yard and heads for the telephone, because this will alert the system in Gibsonton. This gets the rescue unit on its way. And within minutes, one of the people on the 4 phones arrives at the firehouse. She's ready to go out, and their rescue unit is manned, for the most part, by women, completely trained for... completely trained for rescue work. Upon arriving at the firehouse, then sounds the alarm. The one whistle, as we told you, is for a rescue unit. At the same time, goes in, gets the vehicle ready. Everybody ready, get the doors open, ready to roll. Other people arrive on the scene, among them Chief Calhoun. And for the most part, a man will drive the rescue unit. The resuscitation equipment, which may be used, is fairly heavy. All have first aid cards, well qualified to take care of most any type accident they'd run into. Earlier, Chief Calhoun said that in most cases, people are taken directly to Tampa General Hospital, or the closest hospital, which in this case happens to be Tampa General. First aid is administered at the scene, regardless of the type of accident, unless it's something beyond the capabilities of first aid. People will continue to arrive sometimes on the scene of the Volunteer Fire Department because they haven't heard the whistle. The unit is on its way now, within some 40 seconds of the time that the call was turned in. Meanwhile, our victim, our staged victim, we should say, is lying out in the yard awaiting the arrival of the rescue unit. We have in this area several ambulance companies. We understand that the Gibsonton volunteers work in conjunction with these people, filling in wherever necessary. Now our rescue unit, rescue squad, arrives on the scene to render whatever help they can give to the victim at the scene here. And as we can see inside the unit, there's an ambulance type cot. One of the lady volunteers immediately goes to the man to see what is wrong with him. Now, in this case, we're assuming that it's a heart attack because he has all the characteristics of it, the pallor, loosen his clothing, get the resuscitator ready, and administering oxygen. Perhaps we can get Chief Calhoun to come over here and tell us a little bit more about this procedure. Chief, come around on this side and we talk to you about your people here. Who are the two folks that are administering the oxygen?
That's two of our advanced first aiders.
Mm-hmm. What type of training have they had?
Advanced first aid.
Mm-hmm. Does this go all the way through the
First aid
oxygen
course.
unit?
Yes, sir.
What are you equipped to do?
Well, just about any first aid, and transported the victim in.
How long does it take you to get to the hospital from here?
Approximately 10 minutes.
And this would be sufficient time in the case of a heart case? You keep administering oxygen on the way in?
Yes, sir. We give him oxygen until we get him to the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would happen if you were out on this case, for example, and another call came in with one unit? You're somewhat at the...
We have other units in the other communities that stand by for us.
Are there other volunteer units?
Other volunteer units.
Your people look very professional here, as if they certainly know what they're doing.
Well, thank you, sir. We try to do our best.
How many calls are you called on?
Approximately 10 a week.
Really, that many? Of this type, or...?
All types.
All types. So
we have quite a few of these types here where the elderly people get out and try to work in the hot sun, and it just gets them sunstroke.
this is good weather to take it easy.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Just stand by for a moment, because in a few moments we'll be moving to another location, and tomorrow we'll show you more the Gibsonton Volunteer Fire Department in action on Studio 8. Well, back in Gibsonton, and we're at the Victor Fields residence, or I should say what's left of the Victor Fields residence. This house caught fire the Saturday evening before school opened. Fortunately, no one was in the house, no one was hurt, but the insurance company rated it as 100% damaged. And today, Gibsonton Volunteer Fire Department soaked it with kerosene, give it a good start, and set it on fire. In just a few moments, the fire department should arrive, and we'll get a visual demonstration of how hard and how these volunteers work. Remember now, this is not just as easy as plugging into a fire hydrant. They've got to bring their water with them. They have to bring everything they need with them. They also have to be prepared to go outside and seek help should the fire get beyond control. Volunteers are a paid member of the department, and we understand from the time the alarm was turned in, the volunteers assembled, got to the firehouse in Gibsonton, got their equipment underway. They were here working on the fire within 4.5 minutes. First we noticed a man going over to cut the electric wires. It's one of the first things that they do. Make sure that if the house is wired for electric ranges, there'd be no chance of anyone being hurt on the inside of the house. Same thing is true if there's a butane heater outside. They'll search out the butane lines, be sure there are no tanks inside, cut the line, pull the tank away if possible. The fire is reaching its peak at the moment. And as we said earlier, this house has been burned once. Today, they'll finish the burning job. Now, right at the moment, we've got Fire Chief, the Gibsonton Volunteer Fire Department, Durrell Calhoun. It's mighty hot.
Yes, sir, it is.
Now, Durrell, what are these men doing who are kneeling down?
They're fixing to put a fog on it and cool it down.
Do you use fog primarily? Is this the best way to put the fire out?
Fog is the best method for house fire.
Well, what is the principle behind
The
it?
principle is that you can follow the fog in for a straight stream. It makes it awful hot.
Now, what about surrounding houses? Will you lay lines to protect areas around us?
Yes, we'll be watching both houses on both sides of the other truck.
On the arrival at the scene, what's the first thing that you do?
First thing we do, we take off the hose.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a man to check for wires and gas tanks.
Look for people inside the house?
That's right. We'll cool it down, and then we'll have 2 men go in and see if anyone was in there.
Now, cool it down. What's this term?
Well, that is come as near putting it out as we can before we go in.
The roof and that sort of
That's
thing.
right.
How much training have these people had?
Well, not very much. Not very much. They're from all different walks of life, you might say, different occupations.
Do you conduct weekly sessions or monthly or often than that? Do you practice? That's where we're at.
Yes, sir. We have drills once every 2 weeks.
In use of equipment, I see a man getting a gas mask now. What will he be going in for?
He's getting prepared to see if there's anyone inside.
In other words, with a fire this intense, you wouldn't immediately rush in. First, you've got to protect your people that are working.
That's what we call cooling down before we go in.
How much water are they pumping? Or how much water are you capable of pumping in there?
You mean all the equipment?
Yes. Well, you have 2 lines out now?
We have 12,000 gallons of water here now, and the truck we're pumping out of now has 750 gallons.
Huh?
Then we have another truck with 800 gallons. The tanker carries 10,000 gallons.
And what capacity do you use this, and what rate do you use this water up? How fast can you pump it?
The truck is coming out of now will last approximately 2.5 minutes at 100-pound pressure.
So you'll use up water pretty quickly.
Yes, sir.
Do you feed the other 2 trucks from the big one?
Yes, sir, we feed the big truck. From the big truck.
Now, when do you find out? We see there's some people inside the house. What determines when you go inside of this house?
When it's cooled down enough that a man does not endanger himself, because we go for the safety of the firemen.
So this is prime consideration. Once there's no one in the house, you're sure you can contain the fire. You're careful what you do.
That's right. We go ahead and put the fire out then.
It looks like it pretty well knocked this one down, as I heard someone say a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
This is the first thing. Then you go to work at getting it out completely.
Yes, sir. Getting the fire out completely.
Well, thanks very much. This is really something. This is kind of a kid's dream to come out here and watch somebody set a fire and then go and put it out. But they've done a real grand job. We'll be back on the fire scene tomorrow on Studio 8. We hope that you're getting a visual lesson. We know that fire prevention is something we all like to practice. Sometimes it can't be prevented. This house was apparently unoccupied. Fire started from some unknown cause. But we want you all to practice fire prevention where and when possible. We'll be talking to firemen and Chief Ed Levine in just a few days. And in a couple of moments, we'll be back to Studio 8. Studio 8 still in Gibsonton at the scene of the Victor Fields home, or what was Victor Fields home. We're talking to the coordinator of the County Volunteer Fire Department, Ed Levine. Of course, we all know Ed as Chief Levine, former chief of the city fire department. Ed, does this mean that you're the county fire chief?
No, it does not. I'm the county fire coordinator. My job is to correlate the work of all the 13 volunteer fire departments in the county, giving the aid and assistance that the county commission is authorized to furnish to the county fire department.
Now, how many people are we talking about here? We're talking about 13 units or companies?
13 units. Each of them will have 2 or 3 pieces of equipment. Some of them have 4 or 5. But ordinarily speaking, we average about 20 men per department. Gibsonton has about 42 people, but they're one of the units that have the most people in it.
Well, how do they get these people? Some qualification period?
They're all volunteers, every one of them. Now, they all have to complete a training course that's set up by the Florida State Fire College, which, by the way, is one of the best fire colleges anywhere in the United States. And these itinerant instructors are available to us at any time that we want them, and they come into Tampa and teach classes periodically.
Ed, are our volunteers as well trained as the people in the city of Tampa?
Well, this is something that would be a relative thing for me to say, Tom. I say that they are as well trained to use the equipment that they have as any fire department could be.
Now, we're talking about equipment. We notice in the background we have a couple of new trucks with pumps on them. This is very expensive equipment. Fire trucks aren't cheap. How do they come by these units?
Well, these people generally, now they buy this apparatus, they have bought this apparatus themselves. The fire department of Gibsonton has bought this themselves. These are units that they have bought this year and transferred the tanks from the old trucks onto these new chassis. This equipment will cost in the neighborhood of $10,000 per unit. It's some of the best that we have in the county, and they have pre-connected 1.5-inch lines on both trucks. And then, of course, you see the big truck in the background there, which holds about 10,000 gallons of water. So they, with what they've got, they do a tremendous job.
Still didn't tell me how they get the money.
They get the money from the people in their area.
The county doesn't support these
No,
units?
the county has set up, as of 1964, about $50,000, which we spend on these volunteer fire departments. Primarily, it was set up to buy insurance for them. We insure the firefighter, we insure the apparatus, we insure the building, we insure everything that has to do with their firefighting.
You're talking about insurance there. Prompts a question. How much does, or what does insurance rate have to do with the amount of equipment in the volunteer unit?
Very little in the county. Very little in the county. The rating in the county at this time is 10.
Is that good?
And it will, no, it is not good. Because we don't have the water facilities. Your companies are rated on the amount of water in the area. There's so many things that go into fire department ratings, and this would be a real tough thing to go into. And until we get adequate water throughout the county, the fire departments are going to have to stay in this just about the same rating.
So what you're saying here is that it's not the equipment, it's the water.
That's correct. Primarily, this is the big problem. The fact that you can't lay big lines into these homes. Now, you've got to remember the primary purpose or the primary mission of any fire department is to contain the fire in the building of origin. Primarily, these people can do this. They, under the mutual aid agreement, if they don't have enough with what they have here, the minute the chief officer gets here or the first man in command gets here, if he needs help, he calls it from the other units under the mutual aid agreement.
I see. Now, one other question. $10,000 for a new truck. The county doesn't supply it. How do these people raise it?
Through membership in their association.
Or it's each householder pays so much to belong?
So much a year to belong to the association.
And then he is assured of fire protection?
Absolutely, and also of rescue or service from their ambulance.
Well, now suppose that I haven't paid for my fire protection. Does that mean I won't
We're going to get it in here.
I see.
But the only thing that we can hope that every person who lives in the area supported by these, that should support these fire units will do just that. This is our one big problem in the county, the fact that many people will not support the units. If every person who lived in the area that these 13 volunteer fire departments protect would pay this minimum amount of money each year, and with the aid that the county is giving now, about around $50,000 to buy the equipment, and we are buying some nozzles and hose, we'd have no problem, and we'd have one of the best volunteer fire departments in any county in the state of Florida.
Chief, thank you very much for visiting with us in Studio 8.
Glad to do it. Tom.
We want to say here, too, that we picked the Gibsonton Volunteer Fire Department because of many things, access, but it's representative of all of the volunteer fire departments throughout Hillsborough County. They all do a great job. We had to pick one. This was an easy one to pick. We'll be back in Studio 8 in just a few minutes. Of course, it's a known fact that volunteer fire departments wouldn't be there, really, if it weren't for people, the people that man them. And we're talking about volunteer units not only in Hillsborough County, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, wherever volunteer fire departments are in action. And remember, we said that only 5%, slightly less than 5% of all fire departments are manned by professional paid people. Let's talk to some of these people, see why they fight fires. What's your name, sir?
Bill Reese.
What's your job with the volunteers?
I'm a chief engineer.
Chief engineer, what does that mean?
I operate the equipment and make sure all of it stays in good operating condition all the time.
What do you do when you're not fighting fires?
I have a radiator business. And
takes a little time out, doesn't it, to
Well,
practice?
it takes a good bit of time out sometimes, but it's worth it to help the community, I think.
Why did you join the volunteers?
To help out the community and to protect our own property and so forth. It helps everybody, I think.
Good enough. Thank you. Move down the next man with a gas mask on here, or an oxygen mask. What's your name?
Slyer, Gene Slyer.
Gene, what do you do for a living?
I work at U.S. Phosphoric. I'm a general filter operator.
How do you get the time to come out to a fire? How does your employer feel about this?
Well, to be truthful, I'm a shift worker. I work all different types of shifts, different times of the week. I mean, it gives me an ample amount of free time to participate in the community.
Why did you join the volunteer?
Well, for one reason, I live in the community, and I believe it's just as well my job as it is the next man's.
I'm looking for someone to say, well, I just like to go to fires, but I guess that's not
No,
true.
sir.
It's all work, isn't it?
It's all hard work, very little play.
Thank you. What is the mask for? Are you doing research, do you?
Yes, sir. This is a smoke mask. It allows your nozzleman to get into the house to get to the heat of the fire.
That's your job. You're a nozzle.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
That means that you hold on to the end of it.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Back in here, we have a fellow who was obligingly played our victim earlier today. What's your job with the fire department? What's your name?
Fire police, Roy Dagg.
Fire police. That explains it. You get out and keep the people out, traffic out.
Traffic and keep people out.
How many fires have you been out on?
Too many to count.
How long have you belonged to the volunteers?
About 4 years.
Seen a lot of them down here, I imagine.
Quite a few.
This one back of us here is about to try us, too, I'd say. Next gentleman, what's your name?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady. There's a name for you.
Good Swedish name.
Yes, it sure is. How long have you been a volunteer?
About a year and a half.
Whereabouts do you live in New York?
I live in Gibsonton.
In Gibsonton. You used to live in New York.
Years ago, yeah.
Years ago. Why did you get into the volunteer?
Well, as a citizen of the community, I feel it's my duty to get out and help fight the fires. I know I'd want them all to turn out if my house was burning. I figure it's my place to turn out when the rest of them do.
That's as good a reason as I've heard. Did you ever have any fire training before you moved to Gibsonton?
Well, yes, I did years ago up in Connecticut, in East Harvard, Connecticut. I belonged to volunteer firemen.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that's back in the 20s.
A little bit different today.
Oh, a lot
better?
Yeah, a lot different. Much
That's
different.
not back as far as the leather buckets and hands.
Oh, no, not quite as far back.
No,
but
not that far.
Still a lot of difference in women today.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
There's another fellow who's been near the fire. I can tell he's red. It's a pretty hot one, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
What's your name?
Donald Ferris.
Don, what do you do in the fire department?
Backup man usually, sir.
Now, what does that mean?
Stand behind the hose operator.
So you hold him with a lot of pressure there, I suppose.
Help the hose.
How long have you been doing this?
About 3 months.
Enjoy it?
Yes, sir.
It's hard work, though, isn't it?
A little bit.
What about the skull sessions, the stuff back at the shop where you're practicing?
I ain't done too much practice. I work nights and I sleep most of my days if I can do
So
it.
you're available during the day in the
Yes,
case
sir.
of an emergency?
Yes, sir.
Good enough. Think you're going to stay with it?
Yes, sir.
You live in Gibsonton.
Just outside.
Next man, what's your name, sir?
Airman Second Class Kephart, Robert C.
Airman.
Yeah.
Now, what are you doing down here fighting fire?
Well, when I got back from Germany about a year and a half ago, my father-in-law lived in Gibsonton with the chief, and not now, but he got me into the Gibsonton Fire Department.
Are you still in the service?
Yes, sir.
Now, how do you get this little, I mean, you have other obligations. How do you get down to fight a fire?
Well, on weekends or at night, mostly at night, too.
I see. And you are a hose man?
Nozzle man and sometimes rescue and just about everything.
You've had training?
Yes, sir.
And we're getting tried.
Yes, right now.
Let's talk to our last man here. What's your name, sir?
Harold Higgins.
Harold, what do you do with the volunteers?
Well, I'm a backup man. Push the hose when it gets too heavy for the other fellow to pull in.
Been out on any tough fires?
Yeah, actually, 2 or 3.
Uh-huh.
By the way, they saved my house from burning down one time here.
Well, good enough.
And I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I was with TVA up there, construction work, and I had a little experience there.
Well, good enough.
And I came down here, and they're wonderful people down here, and they fight a fire like I've never seen it fight before.
We've got one to fight today. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah.
Pretty hot fire out there, and our volunteers are going to put it out, and they're going to let it burn to the ground and watch it very carefully. In just a few moments, we'll be back in nice, cool Studio 8.